Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're going to be making a kazoo. Well, it's been a while since you've seen a show from me, and most of you know the reasons why. And I'd just like to start off this week's show with a huge thank you to everybody who sent messages, emails, comments on the program. I got cards in the mail, I got e-cards, Facebook messages. Everybody, thank you very much for the support. It's actually very overwhelming and I truly do appreciate it. But as I said, this is my first show back in a while. We're going to take it a little light. I'm not 100%, but I'm definitely 100% better than what I was. And we're going to do a small little light project today, and it's a kazoo. And I've kind of been thinking about it for a while. I had someone mention it to me and thought, you know, this could be a fun project. So we're going to start off by getting into the scrap bin and see if we can't find some stock to make one of these out of. I've picked out my stock that I'm going to make this kazoo out of. I'm going to use a piece of flame box elder. Now this is 3 inches by 4 inches and it's 11/16 of an inch thick. Now that's not an arbitrary number that I just came up with out of my head. I made it 11/16 of an inch thick because that's the same thickness as a harmonica, and I'd like to be able to use it in a harmonica rack should it ever happen that I need to use a kazoo in a harmonica rack. But at least then your harmonica rack is compatible with both instruments. So 3 by 4 and 11/16 of an inch thick, and now we're going to get into the layout of it, and so let's head over to the bench. So what I'm going to do to start this off is I'm going to lay out a center line here on the 3-inch side. So that will be at 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to mark that along, and I really kind of have a bit of an idea in my head as to what this is going to look like, but I really don't have a specific design in mind. It's kind of an experiment. I also want to put a center mark here at the 2 inches on the 4-inch side. Now on the end that you actually put your mouth on to make the noise, I think I'd like to have this 1 inch wide and then maybe 2 inches wide down here at this bottom end. So we're going to place those marks as well. So from the 1.5 inch center mark, you want to come out 1.5 inches on either side to give you your 1 inch width at this end. And then we're going to bring it down to the bottom here, and we're going to go 2 inches wide. So from our center mark of 1.5, you want to come out 1 inch from each side. So basically a 1/2 inch in from each edge if you're not using one of these, or you don't want to go from the center mark. I think the next thing that I'd like to do is place a mark at about 1.5 inches in from the side that your mouth goes on, and I'm not quite sure why I'm picking this number, but I am. So 1.5 inches, and we'll just draw a square line right across the whole board. Now what I'd like to do is take a ruler and join this line here over to that line we just drew, and then from here down to our 2-inch mark for the back end of our kazoo. So we'll draw those, and then we need to concentrate on marking our holes that we're going to need in this particular project. Well, what we're going to need for holes on this is a through hole from end to end right through this entire piece, and that's going to be a 1/2 inch hole. It can be a little smaller at the one end if you wish. I may go 1/2 inch up to where the resonator is going to be, and then come in from the other side at 3/8 of an inch, just to make it a little prettier kind of thing. We also need a hole down through the top of this for our escape of the sound where the resonator is going to be. So from the back end, this is the end where your mouth goes. So from the back end of this now, we're going to come in, I'm going to say it at about 1.5 inches, right there. And that's where our resonator hole is going to be. So I'm going to head over to the drill press with a 1/2 inch brad point bit and a 3/8 brad point bit, as well as a 1/2 inch Forstner bit for this hole here, and we're going to start doing some drilling. Well, I've used a center punch to mark our holes, being our resonator hole on the flat surface here, and our mouthpiece hole, or our mouth hole here, and our back end hole here. And we're going to start off with the 1/2 inch Forstner bit. I've set the depth stop here so that it's not going to go all the way through our stock. You don't want a through hole. So I've got the depth stop set, and we're just going to drill this hole until we reach the depth stop, and then we'll stop it at that. And there it is, there's our center hole there. The next step is going to be to put a 3/8 brad point, and we're going to drill from the back side just to get inside this resonance hole here. You know, I don't like this. Not a fan of using my fingers holding this stock like that. I should know better. Let's clamp this to the backboard. You know, any time that you can get your fingers away from that stock and let the equipment hold it, it's a much safer process and it's better for everybody. So I'm glad I switched that up. There we go, just broke through into the resonance hole. And just for simplicity, I am flying by the seat of my pants on this design. So I've actually changed it up that we're going to put a 3/8 hole at both ends. Just, you know, minimize the equipment, minimize the change up of the tools, and you guys may not have a 1/2 inch bit. So we're going to go with 3/8 front and back. This is a softer wood. If you're going to use a harder wood for your project, make sure you clear out your hole that you're drilling by raising your drill bit every now and then, just to clear out the chips. While the holes are drilled, I'm going to get inside of this resonator hole here, and we're going to clean that out a little bit. There's some chips that are in there, a little bit of burring, no big deal. I'm going to get in there and clean that out. The next step that I want to do is we're going to cut those lines that we drew to give it its initial shape. There's lots of different ways you can do it. You can do it by a hand saw, you can do it on the scroll saw, the band saw, the table saw with a miter fence. Whatever you want to do here is your choice. Judge it on what equipment you have. Seeing that this is my first trip to the shop in over 2 months, I kind of miss using my scroll saw. So I'm going to get in there and I'm going to rough cut it on the scroll saw and then step over to the disc sander just to clean it up and give me those crisp edges. Well, that's the main body of our kazoo kind of done for now. We're going to put it aside, and what we need to work on now is the resonator cap. And for that, we're going to use the same species. You can use whatever you like, but it's a block of wood that is 3/8 of an inch thick, 1 inch wide, and it's 1.5 inches long. And there is some marking that goes on this. I'm going to take you over to the bench, and I'm going to get out my sketch pad that I don't know if you guys love it or hate it, but that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to show you how to mark this out. And then we have some specific size holes that need to be drilled here. So let's head over to the bench and lay this out. Well, let's start off with our shape, which will be something like this. And this, as I said, will be 1 inch wide, and it will be 1.5 inches long. You're going to want to draw a center line on both the 1 inch and the 1.5 inch side. And on the back side, or the bottom, the side that will not show, you're going to need to take a 3/4 inch Forstner bit, and you want to drill. Drilling is even an exaggeration here. You just want to make a divot. You don't want this thing to be thick or to be deep, because its only purpose is it's going to hold our resonator ring. But you don't want it to be sloppy in here. You want it to be such a way that this resonator cap, when screwed down, is going to compress the outer ring of cardboard. You'll understand that a little while later when I show you how to make resonator caps. But it's going to compress it and hold it in place. So a 3/4 inch diameter hole, but just, it's not even a hole, it's a dent, if you want to call it that. In the middle, now we're going to drill a through hole. And you can use a Forstner bit if you like. I would drill from the top down to avoid tear out. But I think for that particular hole, we're going to go a 1/2 inch in diameter. And that will be a through hole. As well, from the ends in, right here at 3/16 of an inch in on both sides, on the top end, we're going to drill a through hole and a small countersink for some small mounting screws. And then, just to make it pretty, we're going to round off our edges here and make it a little aesthetically pleasing. And that there would be our resonator cap. So I'm going to head over to the drill press, and I'm going to drill out all of these marks as I've shown you here, and then I'm going to bring back the final product so I can show you what it is that yours should look like. And there would be our resonator cap. I'll try to show you this. The camera sometimes has problems focusing, but there's the top end with our 1/2 inch hole and our countersunk holes. We're going to use some number 5 brass screws to mount this, so you can, use whatever screws you want to mount it. But we've got our mounting holes as well as our sound hole here, being that 1/2 inch. And on the back, there is that little indentation that I was talking about. It's not a hole, it's just an indent for the resonator cap to sit in. Or the resonator itself, rather, the resonating ring. So at this point in the project, what I'd like to do before I move on to the resonator is I'd like to take the entire body of the project, and I'm going to take it over to the router table, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch round over, and I'm just going to knock off all of these rough edges, as well as on the top of this resonator cap. I'm going to take most likely a 1/8 round over and knock off those rough edges, give everything a good sanding, and once we get that done, this particular section of the project is completed. You may notice that I've also drilled some pilot holes here which mimic the mounting holes for this resonator cap, which would sit right there. So this particular part, once the sanding and the round over and everything is completed, is done. And from there now, I'm going to show you guys the final product of the body, and we're going to move on now to the actual resonator itself. And I'm going to show you how to make some of those resonating rings. And there is the finished body of the Kazoo with some nicely rounded edges. It's all nicely sanded, and of course the retainer for the resonator as well is ready to go. So now it's time to make the actual resonator itself, and for that you're going to need some cardboard, thin cardboard like a cardstock, or in my case I'm going to try to make it out of an old pop case. That, and you're also going to need a plastic bag, the type that you would get from a grocery store or you know, from a retail outlet. So I'm going to head over to the bench and I'm going to show you how to make the resonator for these. Well, what I'm going to use to make the resonator, as I said, is some cardboard. This is actually from a cereal box. So we're going to take this small piece of cardboard, and I've got this punch here that punches out your little circles and whatnot. And what I'm going to do is, this is a 5/8 punch. So I'm going to go across the cardboard and make several 5/8 of an inch diameter holes. And there we've got the holes done. And I know it doesn't make much sense at this point in time, but we're going to go ahead with a can of spray adhesive and give this strip a good coating of that spray adhesive and let it tack up for about 3 minutes. A little less if you want, but 3 minutes is a general guideline. There's a generous coat of spray adhesive now on this piece of cereal box. There is a timer going for 3 minutes, and when that timer expires, we've got a strip of a plastic bag. This is from one of those big box stores. They've got an orange logo. I won't mention their name though. But we've cut a strip, and we're going to have it ready to go, and once that timer goes off, we're going to lay this strip of plastic down on top of this particular piece of cardboard and rub it down. Now, it doesn't have to be taut. It doesn't have to be super perfect. In fact, you want a little bit of space kind of thing to give the plastic room to move within these holes. So once the timer goes off, we're going to lay that plastic in place. And there goes the timer. I'll just shut that up here. Maybe. There we go. So, like I said, take the plastic, just going to lay it loosely on top of this board, or this piece of cardboard, and we're just going to press it down around the outside of these holes. And remember, I said it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need that perfectly taut seal, but you do want to make sure that it's really well rubbed down around the perimeter of these holes, because we're going to cut out around these holes now to give us our resonator rings. So the method I'm going to use here is, I've got another size punch, which is 3/4. That last one was 5/8. And I'm going to take that 3/4 punch and I'm going to line it up inside. I can see in here where the ring would be centered. And this might take you a couple tries to practice it to get it right. But once you got it lined up, or you think you got it lined up, just give it a couple whacks and see if you can't pull out of there a resonator ring. And it's a little tricky, but it's not difficult. There you go. And there we have one resonator ring. So I'm going to take this resonator ring now. I'm going to place it in my retaining cap on top of my kazoo and screw things together. And let's take it for a test spin and see how it works. Well, we've placed our resonator ring inside that 3/4 little divot that we drilled earlier. We've taken our number 5 screws and screwed the retaining cap on top. And now it's time to take it for a test spin. You need this hole here to give the air somewhere to come out, and the sound comes out of both of these ends here. So you just sort of do like a do into the thing and give it a try. Not bad. Play with it, experiment. But for now, there we have it. That's our kazoo. And there you have it. A kazoo. Probably not the traditional shape that you would be expecting from a kazoo, but what's to say you have to do something traditional? Experiment with this. Try it with maybe more than one resonating cap to give it more sound. Try it on the lathe. Turn it instead of doing this flat idea. But if you were going to use it in a harmonica rack, as I had said, you're going to want to keep an eye on your thickness or your final diameter. Like I said, more than one resonating cap, bigger holes for the resonating cap. You may want to try this with a 5/8 hole here instead of the 1/2 inch. There's all kinds of ways that you can change this up to make it your own, whether it be species of wood, different size holes, different resonators, shapes, sizes. Make them longer, shorter, smaller, bigger, taller, fatter. Whatever you want to make it, you make it your own. This is just to get you started and give you an idea. Now this here, I'm probably going to disassemble it now, and I'm going to throw a couple coats of lacquer on it just to seal it and protect it. And that will finish this project up. But that's it. She's done. Guys, I want to thank you again for tuning in this week. And once again, thanks for all the support while I'm continuing with my recovery. And hey, what can I say? I can't promise a show every week from here on in, but I'm going to do my best. So hopefully we're going to see you again next week with yet another woodworking video. Thanks for tuning in, guys.